Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. It is about 1:59, and so just some quick little norms. If you can, make sure your mic is on mute so that we don't get any feedback. Also, if you'd like, you can put your camera either on live feed or on mute as well, just whatever is easier for you. We want to welcome everyone thank you so much for spending some time with us. And let's go ahead and get started. It's 2 o'clock and we want to respect everyone's time. So hello, again, thank you for joining us. This webinar is being brought to you today by IDRA's Equity Assistance Center South, or Region 2, or as we like to refer to it, EAC South. The IDRA EAC South is one of 4 federally funded centers that provide technical assistance and training at the request of school districts and other responsible governmental agencies to build capacity of local educators and ensure a more equitable learning environment for all students. During today's webinar, we will be talking about offline resources that educators can use to engage students who are dealing with the obstacles of the digital divide. While this is not a new issue, this current pandemic event has provided us with a wake-up call to how prevalent the digital divide is and how it disproportionately affects those who are economically disadvantaged, especially people of color and the LGBTQ community. This webinar will explore immediate and sustainable long-term strategies that teachers can employ to engage their students offline. We'll go ahead and we'll start with introductions. My name is Michelle Martinez Vega. For those of you who know me, hello. For those of you who don't know me, I'm glad to meet you guys virtually. I am the Chief Technology Strategist at IDRA. I have a little over 20 years of experience doing technical training. I have worked at the regional and the district level, and now I'm at IDRA. I also have the privilege of working with my colleagues, Dr. Stephanie Garcia and Dr. Paula Johnson, and all the IDRA colleagues on the Chief Science Officers Program and the Valued Youth Program. The Chief Science Officers Program is a student voice, student-led initiative, and the Valued Youth Program is a cross-age tutoring program that really is a student leadership program, and we're very proud of both of those. And we think that all schools could definitely benefit from them. But I'm going to go ahead and pass it off now to Stephanie Garcia, and she's going to introduce herself.
I'm Dr. Stephanie Garcia. I focus on STEM and gender equity here at IDRA, and we're just so excited once again to have you. I will also work with Michelle on the Chief Science Officers Program. We're the directors for the Texas region, and my background is I was a middle school science teacher. I taught at the University of Texas at San Antonio as a lecturer while I was also pursuing my PhD. And now I have the privilege of working at this amazing nonprofit, and all of the incredible work that we're doing to support our community during this time is something I'm very passionate and focused on. I hope that you enjoy the presentation. If you want to go next. So I wanted to real quickly kind of do a warm-up. So my teacher brain's on, right? So I want to have a little icebreaker. So if you don't mind going to your chat box and responding to this prompt. So the prompt is, if you want to please share one offline learning tool, strategy, tip that you strongly recommend to educators. If you could include that in the chat box, that would be awesome. I think it's a really good idea for all the participants to be able to learn from each other. This is a community of learners. And I just want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to share anything that's really working well. And the challenge might be the part that it's an offline learning tool. So if you need to adapt it and maybe think about something with limited internet access, that could also work, okay? So maybe a student, for example, has once a week an opportunity to connect to a hotspot to download whatever they need for their week. That's something to consider as well. So if you can all share out in the chat box, that would be wonderful. So that everybody can kind of learn from each other. Make sure that you're sending the chat to everyone when you're sharing your ideas. so that everyone could see your response. So make sure you click that little arrow so it's selected on everyone. Okay, so I see right now Dr. Martina McGee, bingo, activity boards, those are awesome. Student choice, that's one thing that we're going to share out later. Reading, absolutely. Students can choose the books they want to read, and then I see a recommendation here. Journaling, absolutely. As a science teacher, my background, I love journaling. I love doing investigations and having students journal what they're observing, what they're learning, what they're predicting, as well as revisions and revising their thinking. It's really, really important. Thank you for sharing. We have some links here as well that you can enjoy and go check out. Flash drives to download opportunities. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. With zero internet access needed. Creating math board games. Yeah, having students document their experiences. I was just on a call earlier today about like a town hall meeting that students want to call, a virtual town hall meeting, to really share their concerns and voice their concerns. To share their experiences and what needs they have. Awesome. Rubric charts, yes, rubrics are very helpful as well. So these, keep them coming. You know, I said share one, but feel free to share as many as you want. I'm gonna cold call somebody to share out. Maybe Dr. Martina McGee, if you wanna share out, and you can unmute yourself to explain your idea a little bit more to the group.
Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So when I was in the classroom, one thing I would do for my students who did not have regular internet access is I would send home choice boards in the form of bingo. And so sometimes when I was teaching reading, each letter, each column for the bingo would be a different comprehension strategy. So maybe I would have a inferencing column and a summarizing column, drawing conclusions, depending on the text I have my students working with. And I would design questions specifically for a book I would have them reading, or I'd have them open-ended. So regardless of what book they were reading, they could still answer the questions, right? Other times I'd use the bingo board to focus specifically on maybe a standard. So each box was a different standard, where when I was teaching 5th grade science, let's say, and I know I've shared this example before, where if I was doing force, motion, and design, that entire column, each of the different boxes going down would be a different activity students could complete for a specific TEK. And so students are getting outside, they're doing things in their house, so they're not completing a worksheet, but they're doing more hands-on things to kind of practice and attach those science content to a specific activity that they do in their homes. That way that they're getting to choose, and if I'm sending it home to all 75 of my students, depending on the student's developmental level, I would say, okay, well, this child only needs to do 3 bingo roles, where this student needs to do 1. Right? And so that way I can meet their needs, knowing what they have access to and what they can developmentally handle.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And as she mentioned, she has a great strategy to share, and we'll have that at the end of the presentation for you to check out through a shared link. So if you can click next. I wanted to just kind of set the stage a little bit. So the reason why we're talking about this is for a few reasons, right? We want to make sure that we're ensuring equity and access for all students. All means all, right? And so when we think about limited internet access, there is such thing as a digital divide. We'll talk about that again a little bit later. There's a lot of communities that do not have access to the bandwidth in their homes, or the device, or both, or one or the other, right? So that's something that should be considered by all educators, as well as limited access to a device in their homes. For maybe there's 4 siblings in one device and they're sharing. So it's something to consider. I know even in my community last week, we were out of the internet for 6 hours, just out of the blue, unexpected, and we didn't have a timeline of when it would come back. So thankfully I had a hotspot, but that's not always the case in many homes, right? So it's something we need to be very considerate of. Asynchronous learning is something that's not where all students are joining in online at the same time for a live stream or a live Zoom like this. That would be synchronous learning. So asynchronous learning is something students can access at a later time or at a time that works best in their home, in their household, a block of time in which students could work on something. And so that it's not with this added pressure of everybody joining in at a certain time and at a certain pace as well. So it's something to consider. Distributing resources and activities. What I mean by this is find out what your district is doing that's working to distribute these things. So I know in San Antonio, Texas, many school districts, especially our rural school districts, they have breakfast and lunch pickup times where students are coming to get a meal, and at the same time they're able to pick up a packet for the next week or two, right? And so they're able to get the resources, the library books, whatever it is, whatever activities teachers are sending home for their students. Or students will have access during that time to download whatever is necessary to their devices. So that's something to consider, is how are you distributing resources? Just like somebody shared with a flash drive, I think that's an awesome tool, an awesome way to distribute these resources. Something to consider, right? And then lastly, supporting families, knowing that the schedules of households are different. Each household is very different, right? I think about all my friends who are teachers and parents. So they're leading 100+ students and they have 4 in their home that they also need to make sure they're getting their work done. So be flexible, always approach these things with love and care in everything that you're doing. I'm going to hand it off to now Michelle to talk about some tools that you can utilize for offline learning.
Okay. All right. So we've heard from a lot of school districts and from teachers out there that, as Stephanie mentioned, that we need to have offline tools. You know, the teachers are wanting to reach out to their students, and they want to keep those relationships and just to check on them to make sure that they're all doing well. And so, but they need a way to do that without necessarily doing that with the internet, because as Stephanie mentioned, the internet is not always reliable. And until the internet is a utility or is seen as a utility by municipalities, then we're gonna be living in this digital divide. I'm hoping that right now, because the digital divide has this big, bright spotlight on it right now, that we will be able to make some huge strides that we've been working towards. But nonetheless, offline we just need to have those options, right? So I'm going to just kind of talk to you a little bit about some of the resources that we have found that can be used offline. So Zoom. Right now we are using the Zoom platform for this meeting. Zoom can be recorded even if the account is free. So the only difference between the free and paid account and the recordings is that the recordings will live on your computer. So if you want to record videos, just know that if you're recording them on an iPad or on your phone or on your computer, you will have to move the video from your computer to a cloud storage so that your students, one, will be able to access them fairly easily, and two, it's going to take up a lot of space on your computer. You don't want to keep them there. You want to make sure that you move them over. If you're a Google district or if you use Office 365, then those accounts come with cloud storage built in. You do not have to pay for anything extra. The Google file storage is pretty much limitless. I mean, you have like 4 terabytes of space that you can store your videos on. And then the same thing for Office 365. You have several terabytes of space that you can use. So I strongly suggest that you take those videos that you're creating and move them up into the cloud. Now, knowing that you're going to be moving them into the cloud, you'll want to know that it's going to take some time to upload them. So you don't want to tell your students, oh, this video is going to be available right after we hit leave meeting, because that's not really how it works. You have to allow the video time to download onto your machine, and then also to upload it into the cloud. And depending on your internet speeds, that can take quite some time. Also, how long the video is. A short video is going to be obviously a lot faster than a slow video. Something else to consider is YouTube is owned by Google. And so again, if you have a Google account with your school district, then you can upload it to your teacher YouTube channel and start creating playlists there. And that's going to be a really easy way for your students to access the videos when they have access to a smartphone or when they have access to the internet. So even though you need the internet to make this happen, it is an offline option because the students don't have to have the internet all day to be able to go and look at your videos. All right, so moving on, Google. So Google accounts, Google Classroom, you can use it offline. Now, a couple of considerations. You do have to be connected to the internet initially so that you can download what you need to and synchronize the computer to the files that you need access to. But once you do that, then you have access offline. So you can load up your teacher classroom with activities and handouts that you want your students to use. And then when they're offline, say Monday through Thursday, I don't know, let's make up a schedule for right now. While they're offline, they can be actually working on all the activities. So again, these aren't activities that you're gonna front load that require the internet to answer some of the questions. This is content that maybe you've recorded a video and they've watched it and now they can go ahead and complete the handouts. But they will do the work, and then at a time that's convenient to their parents, or maybe they can go to their neighbor's house that has internet, they can use their Wi-Fi, and then the Google account will synchronize again, and then the teacher at that point will have access to all the completed files. So Google Classroom is still an option even if your students do not have the internet. The next option is the Remind phone app. So, and I put phone app because we're expecting the students have phones, and that's how they're going to be retrieving the messages that you use to communicate with them. But Remind for the teacher, you can use it on a computer, you can use it on a tablet, and you can use it on the phone. So teachers have a lot of options on how to use that app. If you're already using the app, you know how it works. It's a two-way communication. The teacher can send out text messages to students that sign up, and then the students can reply. You do not have to share your personal phone number. When you sign up for Remind, you're going to create a class, and then you're going to get a code that your students will use to sign in to that class. And so you're not receiving their phone numbers, they're not receiving your phone number. It's two-way communication that stays anonymous, which is really nice for educators. If you don't belong to a school district, or if you don't set up the account with your school district email, then you are not allowed to add students that are under the age of 13. That's one of those privacy laws like FERPA, and your district probably has these laws as well. You don't want to violate those rules, but as long as you're signing up with your school account and it's associated with a physical campus, then you can include the little ones. Now, if the little ones don't have cell phones, then you're going to ask the parents to sign up. And how are you going to ask them if you can't email them because they don't have internet? Well, right now, you know, the schools are having food pickup times and packet pickup times. And so if you want to use Remind, add that little flyer into that packet so that the students know that they can join that class and get communications from you. And Remind can be a really fun way. You can really use it in a lot of fun ways. Let's just say you want your students to go do a scavenger hunt and locate things within their house that are fairly common and safe. But you can do things that will keep the kids engaged, and it'll also remind them that you're thinking of them and that you're thinking about their learning. Last but not least, we have freeconferencecall.com. Now, Free Conference Call is free. So there's no money that you have to spend. you just sign up, and then they will give you a phone number, and then they'll also give you a meeting number. And so all you do is dial in that phone number, dial in that meeting number, and then you are have a conference call. And so what you can do is give that information to your students. They can call in, and if you want to do office hours, or just let them know that you will be on that call between the hours of 1 and 2 o'clock, then they can just pop in and out as they want to ask you questions. So again, how are you going to let them know that you have these office hours? You're going to send the information in with a packet, or you'll email the parents and just let them know that you are available to them at certain times of the day. And it doesn't have to be every day. It could be once a week, especially as they're working through their packets. If they have questions, you can let them know, put that aside. And then when you call on your office, during my office hours, we can discuss it, and then you can still complete that activity. All right. So let me go and move on to the next slide. Because you're going to be recording a lot of these sessions, maybe with Zoom or another interactive whiteboard app that's available, like Explain Everything or EduCreations, you'll want to make sure that you're thinking about the audience and how you're going to deliver the instruction. I do not think that anybody at this point thinks they have to recreate the entire school day online. I mean, that would be very difficult to accomplish anyway. We don't expect, I don't think anybody expects anyone to create 7 hours of videos so that the students will have 7 hours of instruction. So think about your audience. Think about who you're sharing these videos with. Think about how you're going to display those and where they're going to live, so when the students do have access, they can log into them. Or if you're going to put them on a USB, like one of the other teachers shared earlier, if the videos are really long, then they're going to take up a lot of space. And so think about what type of instruction you are wanting to deliver, and how you can deliver it in a very short, on-demand way, so that the students can get the snippets of information that they need and then move on and actually do the activity. Online learning is a very different way of working than being in the classroom. So again, don't think that you have to record 7 hours for each day. That's not necessary. All right. So also, I think that right now a lot of us are being challenged. We're pushing our knowledge of our tech skills to pushing it in a way that we never thought of before, right? Like, so we're really figuring out where the holes are, and we're also figuring out what can we do to accommodate our students. So right now, I mean, let's push the technology as far as we can. We don't know where the holes are until we push it. And so knowing where they are is how our district is going to help us. So if you're with a specific school division and they don't have Google Classroom, or they don't have resources for you, then let them know. I mean, right now is the time to ask. Right now is the time to let them know what's missing, because they want to support you. So definitely just look at what's out there, and there are a ton of free resources. You don't have to spend a lot of money. But really what you're doing is you're helping your future self. So right now we're in this unprecedented event. This is, I mean, I, in my lifetime, have never, ever seen schools close, businesses close due to an illness. So this is unprecedented. If you're feeling overwhelmed, or if you're feeling challenged by all the things that are being asked of you right now, that's okay. It's totally normal to have unprecedented feelings in an unprecedented event. So be easy on yourself. Give yourself the grace to and the time to learn what you need to learn, and then put up what you need to put up. So once you have a video that's recorded, don't worry that it's not movie quality. The students just want to see you, and they just want to see, they just want to learn. So everything that you're recording right now, know that the first couple videos that you record might be a little choppy. They might be a little difficult. The first couple Zoom calls you might have are going to be a little choppy. They might be difficult. Again, that's all okay, because there's a learning curve. And just be okay with it. Be comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? And we're building a library for the future. We're building a library of lessons for future use. So if you have, next year, you have a student that needs to do some catch up, or maybe they're homebound for an illness, or for whatever reason, you're going to have built up a repository of lessons that can support these students throughout the rest of this school year, the summer, and then next school year. So all the work that you're doing isn't for this temporary moment. It's for the future. And so when you're building your teacher web pages, you can build them with links to all of these lectures and links to all of the videos that you're recording on the whiteboard apps. And then your students, again, will be able to open those videos, possibly download them onto their devices or on a USB so that they can use it when they're at home and they do not have access. All right. So as Stephanie mentioned, the digital divide is real. I think everybody now agrees with that statement. I don't think there's anyone that feels at this point that internet is just a luxury. Most of us are continuing our livelihood using the internet. If we have, there are people that have lost their jobs and they're applying for unemployment. They're applying for other jobs and they're doing all of that on the internet. There's also telehealth. So right now that everything's closed, people still get sick. People still need to see their doctors. And so how are they doing that? They're doing that online. Again, the digital divide is very real, and our parents are struggling. The parents that do not have access to the internet are struggling with ways of accommodating their students. So Dr. Stephanie Garcia, my colleague here that's also presenting with me, had shared this San Antonio Express News article that talks about the digital divide and follows this family as they try to navigate how they're going to accommodate their students. So not only is internet access an issue, but they don't all have computers. So luckily the school district was able to provide them with the computers, but the parent knows that she can only provide hotspot with her phone. And then when she turns that on, the kids, once they start loading up their homework and sending it to their teachers, after about a couple of hours, the data plan is completely exhausted. And so now they have to wait. So again, as teachers, as educators, as school districts, we need to reframe how what our expectations are and what the due dates for assignments are. If you're in Google Classroom, you can set an assignment and then also let the student know that you're setting the assignment because you want to keep them on a schedule, but that no work will technically be listed as missing. Or at a 0 unless they don't turn it in by, say, the actual end of the school year. But let them know that that flexibility is built in there and that the normal rules don't apply for missing work, because you wouldn't want to add that anxiety to all the feelings that they're already going through because of this pandemic and how unique this event is. I mean, we're all navigating it at the same time. Parents that are working from home are also becoming teachers and cafeteria ladies, and all the supports that the schools normally provide. And so they're being stretched to the limit. Our educators are also parents. They're being stretched to the limit. So I think we need to just remember all of these things as we're putting work out for our students so that they can, one, continue learning, but two, not be added any additional stress. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Stephanie, and she'll continue the presentation.
Awesome. So I wanted to, and I'll go ahead and drop it in the chat box. I wanted to share a link to a teacher-generated shared folder. So within this folder, you'll see lots of ideas for lessons. You'll see, let me go ahead and maybe I could share my screen here. So through this link, thank you, you can see lots of different resources. And in particular, I wanted to go over a science tic-tac-toe so that, you can see a little bit more of these different tools that Michelle mentioned in action. So if you go to the tic-tac-toe document, you can all open it in your own browsers as well and take a look. You can see here a little bit of context is it's a 3rd grade TEK, and the standard is looking at mixtures, right? So it's a science approach here using a tic-tac-toe board. This could be adapted for a weekly activity for students to complete, or it could be done over 2 weeks. This could be printed, or it can be utilized through Google offline features. And if you scroll down, you can see the activity board. So Michelle, if you could go to slide 2. Let's see here. So you'll see all the different options. So students can go across, they can do, work from left to right, they can work from up to down or across diagonally. Either way, they need to choose 3 options to complete that week, and they get a choice. So back to Martina, Dr. McGee, when she was sharing, student choice is so important. Differentiating tasks can still be done through an offline learning approach. And as you can see, one of the options is a student can, lead out the phone conference that week. So if students know every Friday at 2 o'clock, we're going to call in using the online conference call feature, the student knows that, oh, okay, if I choose this box, that means I'm expected to share out something, right? So if you scroll to the different pages, it's not complete, but it's a guide to help educators kind of fill out and use to your advantage in whatever approach that you want to use, any content really that you want to choose. So you can have an investigation where students investigate outside. They have like a checklist. I saw that as I mentioned earlier in our warm-up, to have kind of like a self-assessment for students to kind of go through and that practice that metacognition of, yes, I can rate my learning of how strongly I can do this task, or I understand this concept. They can create a song. You can just scroll through and see all the different tasks and the helpful hints or leveling up options to kind of advance their learning even more and ensure that there's rigor in their learning, right? That none of this is busy work. That's something that we want to stray away from, is we don't want to focus so much on quantity with a ton of small tasks that students really do feel as busy work, but really focusing on the quality aspect and making sure that they're having quality learning experiences. So this resource was shared to me. Jarrett, he has online many different series for Finish the Comic. So it really is helpful for students to demonstrate their learning through drawing and so on and so forth. So you can scroll through this one and really begin to see all the options that students have. And through each of these task sheets, there could be more instructions. So once again, this can all be downloaded onto a flash drive and students could take home, or they could be printed. So there's many different ways that students can access this work. I also wanted to show you some other resources that teachers have made, such as the Spring Break board. If you click on that, you can see this is a bingo board. So the variation here, there's a lot more options to complete, right? Versus the tic-tac-toe, there's 3 activities. This you're obviously doing 5 activities. So it might take a little bit longer to do. I like this one because it's organized by TEK. So this is a good review of different concepts that were covered from different categories in science. So this is really great. If you look at I believe it was the Green Kangaroo. This one's great because this whole bingo board is focused on a specific text. And so each question really focuses on different skills, inferencing, summarizing, all of those different skills are integrated within this bingo board. And it's all set up intentional, right? So students don't really know the reasoning behind the sequencing of tasks here, but teachers do. So they're keeping that in mind so that students are getting a well-rounded experience and they're addressing from different angles, right, these different tasks. So that's really great too. There's a book reporting bingo. So all of these are shared resources. These are teacher generated, as well as this Google Sheet here, you can see by TEAC through kindergarten through 5th grade, all of the standards with an activity and website resources next to it, as well as a list of resources. So this is something that is a combination of a ton of online lists that you're probably seeing through different organizations you're a member of, or like the National Science Teacher Association, they have one, the STEM ecosystems, they have their own list. And so this is really great though, because you can look at all the different resources through and toggle through here this different table of contents here on the left that kind of jumps to different categories. So there's virtual field trips. Some of those might not be able to access through offline, but many of these, especially the STEM and math, a lot of these can be done from home or can be printed. So it's something I wanted to alert your attention to. And then lastly, if you want to add something to this, feel free to email me. I'll go back to this slide here. But make sure that you email me and we can go ahead and add to this list. If you want to go back, oh, Michelle, do you want to talk about the check-ins?
Okay. All right, here I am. So yeah, I mean, the daily check-ins are another resource that an educator has put out for teachers to use. They're completely free. And so what they basically are just check-ins for students to kind of think about, self-assess, how they're feeling today, if there's anything that they want to remember to ask the teacher. So, these can be printed, these can be placed on Google Classroom, these can be placed on a USB. So again, lots of options, but it's basically a reminder for the students just to kind of, again, think about how they're feeling and what questions they have for their teacher, so that when there are office hours or when they call in on the freeconferencecall.com, or when they check in on Remind, that they'll remember, because we all know that we're feeling something at a certain point, and then that feeling gets pushed aside because now we have something else that we have to deal with, and then we have to remember what it is. So this is just a nice way for you to help the students compartmentalize their feelings and the questions that they may need to ask you. Stephanie, did you want me to go back to the presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I love that. And that really speaks to one of my next points, just kind of wrapping up, because I want to leave time for question and answers from all of our participants that are on the call. So just some final thoughts. Increasing student choice is really important. Students want to feel motivated, invested, engaged in their work, and connected to what they're learning, right? Once again, reemphasizing quality over quantity, making sure that you're putting experiences in that will render quality learning experiences, and not just a ton of to-do lists for students to complete. Differentiating the tasks for all learners, ensuring that the supports are there, the instructions are in Spanish and English, that students who have special needs, that those are being considered, and those are right in the forefront of your mind when you're creating these tasks for students to engage in at home. Incorporating socialization into your lesson. So I know that with offline learning, it's a challenge, but hopefully through the conference call application that Michelle mentioned earlier, there's a way for students to connect. And even though they may not be able to see each other, they can call each other and check in on each other through that designated time with their classmates. I think a lot of students, especially those that I've talked to recently that are home alone with their parents and they don't have siblings, they just really miss the social interaction of school, and they want ways to kind of meet with each other. Obviously, social distancing is in mind, but they can set up and engage through those phone conferences. It's really important. Encourage mindfulness, creativity. I love just that mental health kind of check-in of how are you feeling today? How are you doing? That's super important. incorporating movement, innovation. We're going to talk about in one of our future webinars, project-based learning at home and across the curriculum. So really looking at inquiry and continuing that at home through at-home investigations and different learning experiences. Nature, obviously, maybe not going out to a park, but something that they could do there in their own backyard, in their neighborhood. And be consistent to create a routine and a rhythm. Find what works for you as the teacher, as the students, for the family. Be able to stay flexible and be able to adapt to the changes and the needs of all your students. Can you go to the next slide? So lastly, I'll let Michelle talk about this, but one of the features that we have here at IDRA is we offer teacher academies, also principal academies. So I'll let Michelle share a little bit more about that.
Sure. So those of you who are familiar with IDRA know that we have a pretty extensive faculty of subject matter experts. We have people that have been principals. We have a lot of teachers on staff. So we are willing and able, and we hope that you reach out to us if you're looking for any kind of personalized online training sessions. I was a technical trainer, and so I can help your teachers if they're struggling with how to use Zoom and they have a lot of questions. And, we talk about digital natives and digital immigrants and, the different cohorts. I mean, we know how our teaching staff is diverse, diverse in age, diverse in culture, diverse in where we live. So we know that you may need a little support, and we want to be there for you. If you're interested in setting up any kind of online technical training, or if you'd like us to help you with some customized lessons to engage your students, please reach out to our Director of Operations. His name is Hector Bajorquez. He's our educational practices lead, and he is working with districts right now to set up those training sessions. Additionally, kind of as my final thoughts, before we open up to Q&A, because we're going to go back to that slide, I just wanted to let you know that we are offering this training support, and we are doing a lot of it for free. And so if you go to our IDRA website and the URLs there, you'll see a bunch of resources and policy updates and this webinar series, which isn't over. We are going to be trying to do at least one webinar a week. So please, we want to be there to support you. So visit the site often. You'll see that it's going to continue to grow with resources. We also have our IDRA YouTube channel that offers a lot of different videos on, how to diversify the teaching field, how to engage families, STEM presentations that are done by this chief science officers, because again, this is all about student voice. It's not about us, it's about them. And also the recorded webinars, including this one. So if you missed a webinar, you can always come back here and see a webinar that had been offered. And then again, I'm not gonna go over all of these links because there are a ton. I have a ton of slides here. I'm just gonna kind of glaze through them. But what I want you to notice is that for freeconferencecall.com, I have a screenshot here, and then I also have what each of these stamps mean. So when you look at stamp 1, you know that that's the dial-in phone number for all participants. So there's a little bit of training here for you. We have how to create a class for your Remind, also how to get your Google accounts for use offline, and then some student view. So one of the things that we've heard a lot about is that our teachers are frustrated because they can get in and create stuff, but they don't know what it looks like for the student. And so unless they ask one of their students for login information, they're like, well, how do I know what to tell them? How do I help them navigate? And so I went ahead and I included student views on this slideshow. So again, you're going to have access to all of these slides, and you can refer to them later at your convenience when they're posted on the IDRA website. But let me go back to the Q&A, because I think that's where we're at now. We want to open it up to you guys. If you guys have any questions about any of the tips and tricks that we've kind of spoken about, let us know. in the chat box so that we can address it. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so that I can see everyone and see the chat. And let's see here. Right now, I don't see any questions. But again, if you have any questions at all, please let us know. We'll just give it a minute here.
Yes, and feel free to engage in the discussion. We chose Zoom so that you can unmute yourself and unmute your video as well so that we can engage in conversation. So if there's anything else you'd like to add or you have a burning question, now's a great time.
Oh, it looks like a couple of questions are coming in. So we have one here that says, parents are being bombarded with info. What do you recommend? I'll give a little recommendation and then we'll move to Stephanie and she can give one as well. You're right. Parents are being inundated. I think all of us are on information overload. We are expecting parents to be all things to everyone in their family right now. So not only are they in the house working, so they're being full-time employees. Now we want them to be teachers. And, I kind of mentioned this earlier. They're also having to cook and clean. And I know that the kids are helping their parents. I'm sure most of them are anyway. But it's very overwhelming. This is a very overwhelming situation. So I think providing the parents with all the information that you can possibly provide them with, keep doing that, but also maybe add a little message that says, we understand this is a lot. We don't expect you to do all of this within a certain amount of time. Do what you can when you can. I think offering them just that little piece of helpful information, letting them know that they aren't expected to be the teacher. The students aren't going to wake up, have breakfast, get 3 hours of instruction, then have lunch, get another 3 hours of instruction, and then maybe some physical activity, and then the parent can start working their job. I don't think that's the expectation. And as long as they know that, I think they'll be all right. Stephanie, what do you have to add?
I think that just to echo the same things, I mean, just, approaching all this with love and care, knowing that, everybody's going through so much. There might be family members who are in the medical field, and a lot of concern and focus and attention is on making sure on their well-being, that they're good, they're healthy. There's so much to consider. And I totally agree with you, though. I've been hearing, I'm not a parent, but I'm hearing from other parents that it is overwhelming as well. And so I think that's the only advice that I could echo that Michelle already mentioned, is just, having some grace and some flexibility, and change things and adapt things for families that, need to approach this differently. There's no one size fits all approach for any of this. And to just be mindful that there's a lot happening. And so, yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a solid answer, but that's all I've got. But anybody else can feel free to chime in as well.
Okay, so here's another question. It says, are there any ideas for EHS and HSH children?
Yes. So one of the resources, I know that within our link of our shared folder, many of those might be kind of geared for elementary age students, but also thinking about, there's one in there called online module template. And so we shared this, I think, in our very first webinar, and with permission from Dr. Bonner from the University of Texas at San Antonio, she creates this kind of template that really helps chunk the assignments and chunk the learning and stage it. And so one high school I found out earlier this week from Houston, it's an early college high school in Houston ISD, adopted that model school-wide, and they just rave about it. Their students are doing really well with it. The teachers, the families have great feedback. It's going very, very well. So even though that module template that's in that Google folder was really for the purpose of higher education with a bunch of graduate students, we're seeing that something like that is really being helpful for students as they are finishing up their coursework. So I hope that that's something that answers your question, but feel free to let me know. Oh, Head Start. Oh.
Yeah, well, yeah, I saw that too, and there was like
Oh
high
gosh.
school, and then I saw Head Start also. So I think both, right? Because there
Yeah.
are some schools that are considered maybe like an early college, high school, and then you have Head Start. So I noticed, and I don't know if this is okay, but I noticed that Dr. Nilka Aviles is on the call, and I believe also Dr. Sulema Sanchez Corion is on the call as well. And so I wanted to share our early childhood resources that we have at IDRA. They're called Semillitas de Aprendizaje, and I always say that wrong. But these are some storybooks that we have available for Head Start, early childhood, that are in English and in Spanish. And if Sulema or Nilka want to unmute themselves and share a little bit about these resources, that would be great. But they all do come with, we have some big books, there's math readers. These little cartitas are resources that actually explain what the lessons are to the parents, so that the parents know how to approach the lesson with the students. There is an online app that we are currently going to working on, that's going to be live soon, based on each individual book. And then additionally, we will be doing a webinar specifically on the scope and sequence for this curriculum, as well as the books. And then I'm hoping we can even do like a little story time. So if we have that opportunity, then we will post that in our webinars, and that will be something that you can actually just have your students sit and watch. But these books are actual books, and so if you're interested in purchasing them, or we can actually send those to you. So talking about an offline resource, let's see here.
And Michelle, do you want me to drive in?
Yeah, is that you, Sulema?
Yes. Hi, guys. Anyway, one of the things that, as a matter of fact, I have several kindergarten grandkids, one in K3, another one K5, and then the first grader sister. However, I have been sitting with my daughter-in-law trying to get her to prepare kids for reading readiness, and that's what it is. It's just getting them ready to read, which is part of our program, Semillitas de Aprendizaje. And one of the things that for early childhood that any parent can do, or even teachers, is to try to draw vocabulary. And this is the whole research that we have built into our Semillitas curriculum. It's a lot of talking, a lot of vocabulary building, getting them ready to realize that things have vocabulary words that they're going to eventually be reading. And so one of the activities I know I did with them is I just went outside in the yard, and I know all of us would like some kind of break there. So if you go to the yard, in the backyard, and just look around and have them name some of what they see. Do they see a tree? Do they see a leaf? Semillitas is based on all of that, is guiding teachers what kind of questions to ask and why we ask that, because there is research that backs that up. And then eventually keep asking, well, what was that called? What was this? And I told my sister and my daughter-in-law that when she got home, that I wanted them to either look through magazines, cut and paste words or pictures of words that they know. Now, they think they're starting to read, and they actually will. But just the whole emphasis of drawing vocabulary, that's how this curriculum starts off, by asking specific questions about their surroundings, about what they know. And then even then, to accelerate that readiness reading is, what's another word for that? We use the word car all the time. Oh, there's a car. We'll start asking, what color is it? What kind of car is it? Because there's a long list of different kinds of descriptive words for car. Even the parents were getting so excited when I was talking to them. And I said, use your mobile, get your phone, go into the dictionary or thesaurus, and we've already built into the vocabulary for each book just to get you started with a specific story. But if you want to expand and keep them busy, ask them questions. And we'll be going into more about early childhood, but this is an excellent book. It guides the teachers to specific questions, and right at point of use, it will tell the teacher, this is the component that you need to draw. It's got also the CD, and the stories are already recorded in Spanish and in English, and it is a bilingual curriculum. So we'll be talking about that more, and if you have more questions about early childhood, please don't hesitate. Like Michelle said, we're here to help, we're here to support, and here's our number, our contact, our info, and just let us help you. We're here to help you. I was, by the way, a kindergarten teacher for many, many years. So, you know, I also worked at the Texas Education Agency monitoring bilingual education. So I know where the TEA is coming from, but most importantly, I know where the research is coming from and what we need to do for children to really get them ready for first grade.
I just wanna add, Zulema, and everyone, that Semillitas de Aprendizaje also has STEM activities. So all of the stories are based on some type of STEM. So there's some of math, science, technology, you know, like Dos Pollitas Listas do a lot of it with geometry. And if you actually cut out the shapes, triangles and circles and rectangles, you can actually use those shapes, and the kids can put those shapes and make kind of like stories based upon what they use for shapes. I've seen a lot of kids produce stories based upon that. They can create with the shapes a school, or they can create flowers, or they can create a bubblegum machine, and then they can start creating a story of their own, and that builds their vocabulary as well.
Yes. Thank you, Nilka. The other thing is that there is a technology connection. What Michelle is showing you, all of the books and the skills that they learn by book. So if you have a specific curriculum, it's easy to correlate to what you're expected, or the students are expected to learn that. But the most important piece, what Michelle and Stephanie was saying earlier, is a technology. There's also support there for teachers, and it's got a lot of resource for technology. And as Nilka said, it's got all content area embedded into this curriculum.
Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and just to make sure that we're honoring everybody's time. Thank you so much, Dr. Aviles and Dr. Sanchez, for chiming in and sharing those resources. And I know that after, I guess, wetting the whistle here, we are going to probably have a lot of participants at the next webinar when it comes to sharing more about these resources. So again, everyone, if you can, go to our website and check out all the webinars that are going to be coming down the pike, so that you can see which ones are going to be best for your content area. All right, so that's it. It's 2 o'clock. We are right on the nose. Congratulations. High five, Stephanie. Me and you, high five. So if you guys have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to us via email or on our website, or call us. You know, again, we are here to support you. We hope that you and your family stay healthy and well. And
it's 3 o'clock.
Someone's computer is reminding us of the time. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll stop. And again, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing y'all during the next webinar. Bye.
Bye, thank you.